still Tuesday, the 11th of February, 2025. And Litecoin on the daily time frame is having a fat tail outlier to the upside. What does that mean? Well, that means if you look at the variance on the daily time frame, the variance and its correlation on Litecoin, you will see that the variance, which again is the spread of data around the mean, which is another way to say volatility, the variance is having a fat tail outlier, and that means that the asset is 2 or more standard deviations away from the mean on variance. And in fact, if you look at our alpha trading indicator of variance, you'll see that the coefficient of variance setting is built in such a way to tell you actually when it's going to head into a fat tail outlier. So it is now indicating a fat tail outlier event, and it is significantly positively correlated. What does that mean? Well, that means that as the variance is increasing, which is the same thing as volatility being positive, right, and increasing, but specifically positive, and the correlation is positive, in fact, significantly positive, the general tendency of the price will be to move to the upside. And what has happened yesterday and today vis-a-vis Litecoin's price? It went up dramatically, right? The last I looked at it was about maybe an hour and 10 minutes ago. And collectively, yesterday and today had moved up about 19 or 20%, right, on the price of Litecoin in like a day and 10 hours, day and 8 hours. It moved up 20%, right? Like 34 hours, 32 hours, whatever it is. That's pretty significant for an asset to see its price move up, especially an asset as old as Litecoin, which is not much younger than Bitcoin and has a fair bit of liquidity, and which people have written off as, oh, it's old and it doesn't do anything that Bitcoin doesn't do. No, it does everything Bitcoin does, and it does it first, and it does it 4 times as fast. And you know it does it first because that's the whole point of Litecoin, was to be a test bed for Bitcoin development. So whatever happens on Bitcoin in terms of technology progress, the big things happen first on Litecoin. And that means, yes, you can have runes and ordinals and everything else on Litecoin, just like you can have on Bitcoin. But what else? What else can you say about Litecoin? Well, since it is having a fat tail outlier to the upside, since the price is likely to continue going up as long as we keep having that fat tail outlier correlated to the upside, that means it's likely going to run up to wherever it runs up to. There's a decent probability that it will hit one of the 3rd standard deviation bands of the RMLRs on the daily time frame, and then mean revert. It might not hit those 3rd bands and mean revert. If you look at the RMLRs of recent days, you can see that not long ago, Litecoin hit the 3rd band to the upside of the 1110 RMLR on the daily time frame, and then proceeded to mean revert to it. Did it actually hit it? From when I last looked, I don't think it actually quite hit it. So the probability of it hitting the 1110 RMLR before it actually hits that the 3rd band of the 1110 RMLR above, before it actually hits the 1110 itself, are quite low. But it came really close. I don't remember if it hit it or not. So if it did not hit it, then the probability of it hitting that 3rd band to the upside is quite low before it would actually, rather than mean revert fully to it, which it is likely to do if it did not yet complete that mean reversion. But if it did actually complete that mean reversion, then yeah, it could certainly run up to that third band to the upside. And also it can run up to the 3012 RMLR's third band to the upside. And in that case, it is not in mean reversion, it is fully in distribution. And there's no particular statistical reason that it must or extremely likely will mean revert to the 3012 RMLR right now. Right, but what we do know is that after, of course, if you look at different time frames, you'll see different information about the same things. But if you look at the daily time frame, we do know that once it is done distributing, whether it hits the third band to the upside or not, once the returns are done distributing on the daily time frame in their current move, they will eventually mean revert, because that's all assets do. The returns of the assets distribute away from the means of returns, and the returns of the assets mean revert to the means of returns. That's all they do. And really, the price action just follows that. And again, counterintuitively, it's the volatility that determines, right, the volatility and its correlation to the past and current data set is what determines the returns and their direction. And then the returns and its correlation also tell you the direction of the price. So the volatility creates the returns and creates the price action. The volatility and the correlation. Together they create the price action. Just like entropy and its correlation. They both do this. And if you say, well, why isn't it just one or the other? Well, it's because it's not. It's both can do this. That's why if you look at things like trending moves, right, you'll see that trending moves and fat tail outliers tend to happen a lot around the same time. But if you look at a fat tail outlier on variance, you'll see a fair enough amount of the time, in fact, a significant portion of the time, that when there's a fat tail outlier on variance, there is also a trending move, right, on entropy. Is that important to know? Yeah, it's important to know. Why is that important to know? Because it shows you that these things act in concert with each other. It's not a coincidence. There are coincidences. There are plenty of coincidences in the universe, starting with the fact that there's geometric Brownian motion, which shows that most assets are in a random walk most of the time. But when the math lines up with the math, it's not a coincidence when the math lines up with the math. It's a confluence. And a confluence is merely when two or more indicators of different things are indicating similar things to you. Anyway, that's good for now, folks. Subscribe if you haven't. Like it if you haven't. Hi to you. Oh, your name is Kind Regards. That's hilarious. I love it. Feel free to subscribe and like. Tell your friends. And leave a comment. All right. Cheers. See you in the next one.